Maverick News, the antivirus program for your mind. And now, the Freedom Reporters.
Hello, Maverick family. I'm Rick Walker. Welcome back to the Maverick News Channel, and also back by popular demand after an incredible debut performance last night. The one, the only, Laurie Spencer.
Howdy. Good to be back. We had fun last night.
I did. I had a riot.
That was awesome. You know what the best part was, though? I think after the show, you and I went offline and we talked for about an hour. And I kind of wish we all would have kept the show on. We had the best conversation after the show ended, I thought. That was great.
Yeah, I thought it was a great show. I thought there was tons of valuable information, and we didn't get through everything. So some of the stuff we're going to touch on again tonight. Some of the stuff from last night flows into what we're going to talk about today. That's how great it was.
It was so nice. We got to do it twice.
And the second time will be twice as good. And do you know how freaking awesome you are?
What?
No, really. Listen to this. This occurred to me today. Alex Jones has tomorrow's news today. But because of you helping yesterday and directing the flow of the content, helping to choose the stories yesterday, we had Alex Jones's news of tomorrow a day before Alex Jones had it. So I'm thinking that you're so good, we actually now have next week's news today.
I'm an inside source, baby.
That's right. It's true though, because I tuned into some InfoWars today.
Did you?
To see if he was, to see if he was still on the air.
Yeah. Are you still there, Alex?
Yeah.
He's still alive?
He is still there. Good. But everything we talked about yesterday, he was talking about today.
No kidding. Well, cheers.
Cheers, Laurie Spencer.
You notice the cup. I'm still waiting on a Maverick News coffee mug. We have a friend who can make us like custom coffee mugs and t-shirts if you like.
We should talk about that because I keep trying to do that sort of thing, and then getting ready for the show gets in the way every day.
I don't know how you do it for 3-4 hours a night, 7 days a week, and all the other things that you do, and you have a life and a job. I don't know how you do it. I was worn out after the 3-hour broadcast last night. I had no energy.
Yeah, I had a lot of other stuff I wanted to get to today, but some crazy things happened around here, and I just all I had time for today was show prep, really. So, and then even with that, I was scrambling just to get the material ready here today. So thank goodness you're back, because I can use the support.
I'm glad I can help.
Yeah,
I try to bring more of the Canada centric stories. You're the expert on Canada. I'm trying to bring more of the international news and news from the United States.
Yeah. And
give that American point of view, because I know we got some Americans out there in the chat. Hello, Americans. We're all here working for peace.
Yeah. Well, now that you're here, I think our U.S. audience is only going to grow. And I think that's a great thing. I love the U.S. and even my other program, it runs on U.S. stations. It doesn't even run on Canadian stations. It gets beamed back into Canada from the United States.
Because we love our cars.
Yes, that's true. Yep.
We love our cool cars in the USA.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why we're not giving up our gas guzzlers. We're not giving up our 57 Chevys, our 66 Corvettes. No way.
Yeah. And John Manson, who from Alberta, he likes to he has a Rolls Royce. I think he's owned several. So he says I'm a Duesenberg because he knows I'm into cars. And then yesterday after the show, he messaged and he said, Lori's awesome. She's a Rolls Royce.
Oh my goodness.
It's
Well,
true.
it's nice to be a doozy. You're a real doozy, Rick. You're
Yeah.
a Duesenberg.
That's what they used to say. If you arrived in a Duesenberg, you had arrived.
Indeed.
Yes.
Well, I can handle the Rolls Royce. I mean, I'd
Oh,
rather
yeah.
be a Ferrari, but I'm probably, maybe a little over the hill for a muscle car. Maybe a Rolls Royce suits me better.
Oh yeah, there's class there. That's top. It doesn't get any better than a Rolls Royce.
They are sweet.
Yeah.
I've never taken a ride in a Rolls, but
No.
if John wants to take me for a ride next time I'm in Canada, I accept. If you're out there listening, John, I want to go for a ride. I want to know what it's like to ride in a Rolls Royce.
I think it's kind of like riding in a car.
It's just a car. When you get right down to it, it's an engine and four wheels.
Yep. No, I could talk about this ad nauseum. The newer, especially the new ones, they're pretty pretentious. They are over the top, out of touch with reality. And there was a Rolls Royce that I did a story on about 6 months ago, a new one that they came out with. We're not even into the news yet. But it kind of made me sick to my stomach, because it was just, they were talking about how they wanted to, how can I put this? I don't have the correct language. They had very carefully chosen words to sort of tone down the opulence and the gratuitous nature of the Rolls Royce. So it's not so flashy. So it's not so in your face in this age of sustainability and economic restraint. So, for the peasants, as you're cruising among them, you don't want to be
too ostentatious.
Yes.
Yeah.
In your Rolls Royce with the fiber optic lighting on the ceiling that mimics the constellations of the stars.
Yeah, with the mood out there, if you're rolling in a Rolls, people might just surround your car and bash your windows out and attack you.
You never know. You never know.
People are mad. If I were driving a car like that, I might be a little nervous too, to be honest with you.
Have you ever seen the Beatles Rolls Royce? I don't know if it was the Beatles or if it just belonged to John Lennon.
Oh, yeah.
You ever seen that?
I have seen that car. The psychedelic Rolls. Yeah.
Yeah, with all the the flowers and stuff painted all over it. Yeah. Anyway, I saw that at the
awesome. Yeah.
It was at the Henry Ford Museum years ago. So I got to see
I love the Henry Ford Museum.
Yeah.
Did you get to see the JFK limo? They have that.
Yeah, we did a story on that years ago
that
too.
Kennedy was killed in.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd like to see that one. I'm a bit of a Kennedy buff.
Yeah, a little bit creepy, a little bit weird to get that close to. They put that car back into service afterward. I think that's pretty weird.
Did. Yeah. Lyndon Johnson used that as his presidential limousine. Didn't even blink.
Yeah.
They did some security upgrades to the vehicle. But yeah, that was his limo. I think it was retired by Nixon. Nixon used it for a while, and then they got rid of it and sent it to Dearborn. Yeah, I don't know if I'd want to ride in that car. Would you, if you're the president?
No, I think it's just a little bit too. I wouldn't want to touch it. It's like
no,
almost to me.
Look at it again.
Like fine, put it in a museum if you want, but to continue to use it and ride around in it after you'd had a president assassinated in it, no, I don't think that was right. But
needless to say, they had to put new seats in or clean those back seats real good.
Yeah,
we've all seen the ugliness of that, and yet it's one of the most popular car exhibits in the world, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. Well, people have a fascination with the entire Kennedy story, right? Have you been to Dallas through the museum there?
Many times. I've been studying the Kennedy case since 1984. I got interested in it in high school. Even as a kid, I knew that something wasn't right. My parents had that copy of it was Life magazine right after the assassination. Every American household had that magazine, and I
Yeah,
found
have
it
one
when I was a
upstairs. I
kid.
have one upstairs. Yeah.
Do you have it? Yeah, I
Mhm.
still have mine from my parents, and I was fascinated by it. This is telling how old I am, but I was just a child in like 1974, 75. I'm looking through this magazine, and they only had stills of the Zapruder film. The public had not yet seen the Zapruder film. It had been held, hostage basically by the government in Time Life, and
Mhm.
we didn't get to see that until 1975
Mhm.
on a show that was like a late night talk show that Geraldo Rivera, of all people, hosted. It's called Good Night America. I don't know if you're old enough to remember that or if it aired in Canada when you were young. It's on YouTube. It's fascinating. And it's the first time that they ever showed the public the Zapruder film. And there's a live studio audience sitting there while they're rolling this film, and you can hear that audible gasp of shock at the moment, Kennedy is blown to pieces.
Mhm.
And it was the first time America had ever seen that. It was like, what, 12 years after the assassination.
When I was a kid, I badgered my parents. I wanted a Super 8mm movie camera.
Like Zapruder had.
Yeah.
I think that's what he had.
Yeah, I wasn't really thinking of it like that, but I wanted one. So anyway, for Christmas, as a kid, I got one. They got me a used camera and projector. So anyway, I used to go to the library. My parents would say, "Where are you going today?" It's like Saturday. "I'm taking the bus. I'm going downtown to the library." I don't know how old I was, just not even a teenager yet. So this is back in the 70s, and they had a section with Super 8mm film where you could take the
That you could
films out.
rent or check out.
Like for free, right? So I went down there, and what did I find on the shelf? Copy of the Zapruder film on Super 8mm. So
Interesting.
so I took that home and watched it over and over and over again on my projector, and then I'd go back and check it back out again. I kept
Isn't it
that thing
weird?
for weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we've all seen it thousands of times probably, but as a student of the case, obviously I've had to review it over and over and over again. And to
Mhm.
this day, I still wince. I have to look away. I have to close my eyes at that moment when the headshot occurs.
Mhm.
And I'm a historian. I'm a student of John F. Kennedy's presidency. He's my favorite president of the 20th century. And those are fascinating years. And all that study, it feels like, is bringing me to where we are now. Kennedy was there as his father was ambassador to the court of St. James in England in the run up to World War II. And he was trying to keep us out of that war unsuccessfully, as it turns out. And his great foil was Winston Churchill, who we're going to talk about a little bit today.
Yeah.
And some ominous things that he did. And Jack, his son, was an assistant to his father at the embassy there in London. And he disagreed with his dad. He wasn't an isolationist. He felt that America needed to enter the war and fight Hitler. He felt that Hitler was a threat to the world. His father didn't quite see that, but young Kennedy did. And long story short, he fought the war. He was in the Pacific. He was fighting Japan, like most of our Americans were. After the war, John Kennedy was a newspaper reporter for, I think it was UPI, the wire service, UPI, United Press International. And he was a correspondent at the founding of the United Nations. He had gone on a tour with General Eisenhower across Europe right after the war ended, and toured Berlin and toured Hitler's secret bunker. And he was an eyewitness to history so much that had happened before the Cold War. He understood the Cold War. He presided over it. And the moment we're in today, we often compare that to the Cuban Missile Crisis. And I think that's a pretty apt comparison. So for a student of Kennedy's presidency, I see a lot of parallels there. And I only wish that he could, be here today and give us some good advice.
Yeah, I was always fascinated with Kennedy. Today, a lot of people think he would be a Republican rather than a Democrat.
He certainly wouldn't make it in the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
They wouldn't want that guy at all. I think he'd be independent or a Republican. Absolutely.
And what's your assessment? Did the shooter act alone? Leave
No.
Harvey Oswald?
No. I don't believe Oswald fired one shot that day. And I don't believe he shot at General Walker back in April. I don't think he killed the policeman, J.D. Tippit. I believe that Oswald, I'm not going to say he was innocent. I believe Oswald was an intelligence operative, perhaps even a double agent. And he was so good at it that to this day, intelligence experts are still trying to figure out who he was working for. Was he ONI, Office of Naval Intelligence? Was he CIA? We know he was an informant for the FBI. He had done, all that work over in the Soviet Union, which appeared to be a part of a fake defector program that the CIA was running, trying to place moles inside of Russia. And of course, KGB saw right through that. They didn't want anything to do with Oswald. They monitored him and kept an eye on him, and I think they knew he was a spy. I often wonder, my own pet theory is, I wonder if Oswald was actually infiltrating the plot to kill Kennedy and was trying to stop it. And that's why they had to kill him. He was the man who knew too much, in my opinion.
What do you think of Oliver Stone's film?
Loved it. Love Oliver Stone. And when he made that movie, it had such an impact that no other political thriller ever did. It brought about actual legislation in the United States Congress. There was such a public outcry after at the end of the JFK film, there's that little info box that tells you about all these documents that were still being held secret, that were still classified, and were supposed to be held by the federal government until the year 2037. So the public was so outraged that they wrote their congressman, they wrote their senator, they got the JFK Records Act introduced and passed in 1992. And one of the last things that President Bush 41, did before he left office was sign that act into law. Thank God that we have that, because we've had millions of documents declassified, released under the JFK Records Act. And it was supposed to apply for a period of 25 years, expiring in 2017. And by October of 2017, the last of the remaining documents were all supposed to be released under that law, unless the president specifically cited certain documents that had to be withheld for whatever national security purpose. So as you know, under Trump, it came up on his watch while Trump was president. And he tweeted out in October, I'm going to release it all. I'm going to release everything. And then he didn't. He switched. He flip-flopped on that, because I'm sure he got a visit from FBI, CIA, and they persuaded him one way or another to keep those secret. And then he had to tweet out the next day, well, I'm going to release some of the documents, but not all the documents yet. And ever since then, they've just been pushing that deadline back. Biden has also reset it again. I think it's going to be 2023. They're just kicking the can down the road. What possible good reason could there be at this point? Next year will be the 60th anniversary of the murder of John Kennedy. And to this day, what Cold War secrets could be so explosive that we can't know about them now? If there's nothing there, why haven't they released all these files? If Oswald really was the lone assassin of President Kennedy, then what's the problem? Why are we still waiting almost 60 years later?
A lot of secrets, a lot of things still lurking in the shadows.
The deep state.
Yep.
They didn't call it that back in 1963, but it was there.
Mm-hmm.
Harry Truman created the deep state after World War II as part of the Cold War. That's when the CIA was created. That's when the NSA was created, all that on Truman's watch. And it's interesting, after the murder of President Kennedy, about a month later in December of 1963, Harry Truman published an op-ed in the Washington Post in which he expressed regret for ever creating the CIA. He never meant for it to be a policy-making arm of the government. He never intended for it, he said, to get as out of control as it did, so unaccountable, pulling off coups, assassinating world leaders, which at that time the public didn't know. We didn't know that until the mid-70s when we had the Rockefeller Commission and the Church Committee in Congress investigating these things, and the 1978 House Select Committee on Assassinations that looked once again at the assassinations of Dr. King and President Kennedy. And in that one, unlike the original Warren Commission, they came to the conclusion that the murder of John F. Kennedy was most likely a conspiracy. They just couldn't prove it. Without those documents, how do you prove it? And even if we had every last piece of paper, every last document, I seriously doubt, don't you, that we'll ever find a smoking gun document that, tells us who done it. Certainly an operational plan like that is not going to be committed to paper. And if it was probably burned a long time ago. Probably the best we'll get is pieces of a jigsaw puzzle.
In this age of censorship and disinformation, and all this political theater we get, even if you were looking at the truth and it was right in your face, someone would come along and lie about something to cast doubt on it that would prevent us from ever really having a solid understanding and just will prevent us from ever saying that's exactly what happened.
Yes.
There's always going to be some doubt.
Exactly. And, when you look behind the scenes and you trace some of, say, let's just take the JFK case as an example, since we're talking about that. When you really look at a lot of the conspiracy theories that are out there about the JFK assassination, you hold them up to the light and you put them under scrutiny and you trace them back to the original source, most of the time you can trace that back to someone connected to the government, usually the CIA. So they invent their own disinformation campaigns to keep the conspiracy researchers and serious historians very confused, because we have all these different theories and evidence. In the JFK case, there's the Castro did it theory, there's the mafia did it theory, there's the LBJ did it theory, there's the Oswald did it. There's so many theories. Then it starts to look absurd, right? Like all of these people were working together, big oil, the government, the intelligence agencies, the president of the United States. And you trace those back and they kind of fall apart when you hold them up to the light. Most of them have no evidence to support them. I call them evidence-free conspiracy theories. And in modern terms, I'd probably compare it to Russiagate. That's something that, for example, the CIA cooked up tried to make us think was true. And upon the closest scrutiny, we literally had a special counsel investigate this and spend millions of taxpayer dollars, and came to the conclusion that Russia didn't do it. President Trump didn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
It was all fake. It was fake news.